Beans Hour Bible Theology Live, Episode 11, Joshua, Son of Nun. Today's episode deals briefly with Joshua, the main figure of the book of Joshua. The Hebrew name Yehoshua means Yahweh's salvation. In Greek of the Septuagint, his name is Jesus, Jesus, same spelling, like the name of Jesus of Nazareth. So this episode is focused on Joshua, son of Nun, the one who continued the work of Moses, his master, and the date of entering Canaan under the leadership of Joshua is around 1200 BC. Joshua was born in Egypt prior to the Exodus event, and he died at the age of 110. So his activity ended around 1150 before Christ, when a new period in Israel's history starts, the period of Judges, between 1150 and 1050 BC, when the monarchy begins in ancient Israel. We begin with the book of Joshua that comes after the book of Deuteronomy. The book of Joshua begins another section of the Old Testament or Hebrew Bible called the former prophets in Jewish Bibles or the historical books in the Christian Bibles. This section consists of 6 books: Joshua, Judges, 1 to Samuel, and 1 to Kings. The book of Joshua can be neatly divided in 2 equal parts. Part 1, chapters 1 through 12, the conquest of Canaan by the Israelites, and part 2, chapters 13, 14, 24, the apportionment of the land of Canaan among the 12 tribes of Israel. At the center of the book of Joshua is Joshua himself. Joshua was the assistant of Moses in the books of Exodus and Numbers, and later succeeded Moses as a leader of the Israelite tribes in the book of Joshua. Joshua was one of the 12 spies sent to Canaan in Numbers 13:14, and one of the supporters of Moses praying during Israel's fight against Amalek, Exodus 17. The first appearance of Joshua in the Pentiuc. Joshua was Moses' assistant going with his master to Mount Sinai, Exodus 24 and 32, and dwelling in the tent of meeting, Exodus chapter 33. When Moses was near to die, Joshua is chosen to be Moses' successor, Numbers 27 and Deuteronomy 31. And Joshua is the leader who will lead the people of Israel into the promised land and conquer Canaan. He will die and be buried in the land of Canaan, Joshua 24, verses 29-30. Regarding the first part of the book of Joshua, entitled The Conquest of Canaan, we need to make some points of clarification. First, conquest is not the right term to describe what happened after the Israelites under Joshua's leadership crossed the river Jordan, entering the land of Canaan, promised land to their ancestors, starting with Abraham, in Genesis chapter 17. It seems that settlement is probably a better term. The Israelites entered the land of Canaan and gradually created their own settlements, while many of the Canaanite fortresses remain intact. This is the example of the Canaanite fortress of Salem, Jerusalem, that David really conquered from the hands of the Canaanites at the beginning of year 1000 BC and turned it into the capital of his newly created state from the confederation of the 12 tribes of Israel. Settlement rather than conquest, and if this was the historical reality, we need to take another look to the violence in the book of Joshua, more precisely at the divine command given to Israel to exterminate all the Canaanites, Joshua chapter 6, verse 21, carrying out the cherem proscription, forbidding, or banning, from the verb karan, to dedicate, to excommunicate, to ban. All the Israelites conquered, including the inhabitants of the land, should be dedicated to God, burned with fire, not be spared for private benefit. If one takes literally the divine injunctions, the conclusion would be a genocide, the Canaanites being decimated, annihilated by the Israelites. However, the scriptural evidence proves the contrary. The Canaanites survived the Joshua times, intermingling with the Israelites for a long period of time. So what we have in the book of Joshua is a great deal of rhetorical, exaggerated language aimed to underscore the idea that Israel first appropriated the entire promised land, and second, they should stay away from all bad Canaanite practices, among which the cultic prostitution and idolatry. So herem, the banning, the proscription, should be taken metaphorically rather than literally. Archaeology is the strongest evidence to support this idea. No patterns of destruction which could be correlated with the time and location in the early period of Israel and Canaan were discovered. So all the destructive aspects mentioned in the book of Joshua are theological and literary in nature. The first part of the book of Joshua introduces the Israelite tribes as the inheritors of the Nahalah property, Canaan, given to them by Yahweh. We'll move now to three events in the life of Joshua as leader of Israelite tribes entering Canaan. The first event, Joshua and the spies sent to Jericho in Joshua chapters 21 through 24. The book of Joshua opens with four speeches, one by God, two by Joshua, and one by the people. Joshua chapter 1, verses 2 to 18. Joshua, the successor of Moses, is urging the people to get ready for entering and acquiring the land of Canaan promised to Moses. The territory of the promised land is vast, running from Jordan east to Mediterranean Sea west, from Lebanon northwest, and the Grand River Euphrates northeast to the wilderness in south. These borders are the same as in the description given by Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 11, verses 24-25. This description is idealistic in nature. Israel has never occupied such a vast territory. The story of the capture of Jericho in Joshua chapter 6 is introduced or previewed by Joshua chapter 2, where Joshua sends two spies in reconnaissance. The spies cross the river Jordan and arrive at Jericho, where they encounter a prostitute by name Rahab, who sheltered them in her house. Joshua's commissioning the reconnaissance parallels Moses' earlier ordering the spies to investigate the land of Canaan after Israel's exodus in Numbers chapter 13. Rahab, a prostitute of Jericho, is mentioned by name in Joshua chapter 2, while the two Israelite spies are unnamed. Rahab is termed in Hebrew Isha Zonah, a prostitute woman, Joshua chapter 2, verse 1. The Targum, or the Aramaic translation Jonathan, downplays the Hebrew word zonah, prostitute, by changing with the Aramaic word pundaketach, meaning innkeeper. On the same line of thought, the Jewish historian Josephus, 1st century AD, mentions that Rahab kept an inn where the Israelite spies were sheltered. This interpretation was likely based on sound similarity between zona, prostitute, and mazon, in Hebrew meaning food, Rahab being a food provider for strangers and innkeeper. From Shittim in the Arabah or Jordan Valley, opposite Jericho, on the eastern side of Jordan, Joshua sends two spies to Jericho to investigate the military strength of Jericho. The two spies stayed at Rahab's house, which was built into the city wall in the casemate. Eventually, the soldier asked Rahab to deliver the spies to them, but Rahab hid the spies on the roof under bundles of flax because there was the time of flax harvest, and the bundles of flax were spread on the flat roof to dry out. Rahab said to the spies, quote, I know that Yahweh has given you this country, that we are afraid of you, and that everyone living in this country has been seized with terror at your approach. For we have heard how Yahweh dried up the sea of the reeds before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the two Amorite kings across the Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom you put under the curse of destruction. When we heard this, our hearts failed us, and now no one has any courage left to resist you, since Yahweh your God is God both in heaven above and on earth beneath. So swear to me now by Yahweh, since I have been kind to you, that in your turn will be kind to my father's family, and give me a sure sign of this, that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and will preserve us from death. End quote. Joshua chapter 2, verses 9 through 13. The spies promise Rahab that they will spare the lives of Rahab's family if she will hang a red rope out of her window at the time of the Israelite attack. The red robe proved to be a saving sign, the way the lintels of the Israelites being marked with blood proved to keep the angel of death out of the Israelite houses, while the Egyptian firstborn babies were all killed by the angelic exterminator in Exodus chapter 12, verses 7 and 13. According to Jerome's interpretation, the red robe foreshadows the saving blood shed by Christ on the cross for the salvation of all humanity. When Jericho fell into the Israel's hands, Joshua 6:17 through 25, Rahab herself and her family were spared by the occupying troops. According to a Jewish tradition, Rahab converted at the age of 50 after 40 years of prostitution. Rahab repented for three sins. Quote, Master of the universe, I have sinned with three things, with my eye, my thigh, and my stomach. By the merit of three things, pardon me, the robe, the window, and the wall. Pardon me for engaging in harlotry, because I endangered myself when I lowered the rope for the spies from the window in the wall. End quote. This is a passage from the Babylonian Talmud, section Zevahim. Rahab in the New Testament appears in the genealogy of Jesus found in the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew 1:5, to showcase God's love, which surpasses all human labels and categories. One of the ancestors of our Lord Jesus Christ is a pagan woman and even a prostitute. Rahab married Salmon of the tribe of Judah and was the mother of Boaz, one of the ancestors of King David. The Epistle to Hebrews, chapter 11:31, considers Rahab a saint who lived by faith. And the epistle of James 2:25 sees in Rahab a righteous who distinguished herself by righteous works or deeds. Some ancient commentators have conjectured that Jesus invoked the name of Rahab by writing it in the sand when he forgave the adulterous woman. John chapter 8:6. The second important event in the life and the ministry of Joshua is the crossing of the Jordan River narrated in Joshua chapter 3. The narrative of crossing of the Jordan River, Joshua chapter 3, parallels the crossing of the Sea of Reeds in Exodus chapter 14. According to Joshua chapter 3, Joshua instructed the Israelites how to cross the Jordan River by following the priests who were carrying the Ark of Covenant through the river, thus making the water stop their flow. Ancient traditions identify Al-Maktas, Arabic name known in antiquity as Beyt Abarah, in Hebrew meaning house of crossing, with the place of crossing. Al-Maktas, meaning in Arabic baptism or immersion, is a place on the eastern side of the Jordan River at the north end of the Dead Sea. This is the place of baptism mentioned by Origen in the 1st century under the name Beyt Abarah. Beyt Abarah, mentioned by Origen in the 1st century and also inscribed on Madaba Map of 6th century, the time of Justinian, like the place or the house of the crossing, refers to the place where the old Israelites crossed over the Jordan River. Also, this is the place mentioned in the New Testament as Bethany beyond Jordan, on the eastern side of Jordan, where John the Baptist used to baptize, where Jesus received the baptism from John, conform the Gospel of John, chapter 1:28 and chapter 10:40. Here is the place where, according to an old tradition authenticated by a Byzantine church, Prophet Elijah ascended to heaven, Jabal Mar Elias, the mountain of Elijah in Arabic, mentioned in 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Interestingly enough, Elijah, accompanied by his disciple Elisha, struck the Jordan River with his mantle, and the river split in two, and both men crossed over the eastern side of Jordan, from where Elijah was taken up to heaven in a chariot of fire. Unfortunately, due to the Six-Day War in 1967, the complete area of all Maktas was abandoned. The area was heavily mined. That is why the new place of pilgrimage for the baptism was from that day on chosen on the western side of the Jordan River in Israel of today. After the signing of Israel-Jordan Peace Treaty in 1994, the demining of the area took place and archaeological digging started immediately. In 2015, the site was designated as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, and since 10,000 people had every year on January 6th coming to this place to celebrate the Epiphany. The most important archaeological findings are the remains of a Byzantine church erected at the end of 5th century AD and dedicated to St. John the Baptist, located now on the eastern side of the Jordan River. We may assume that John was baptizing on the eastern side, waiting for an Elijah type of Messiah coming down at the Jordan River and leading the group of those baptized, a type of messianic group, to the promised land. And as his foreshadow, the old Joshua, note the name Joshua, Jesus, parting the waters of the river Jordan and leading the Messianic group into the Holy Land, and so initiating the arrival of God's kingdom or the reign on earth. The third and the last event in the ministry of Joshua that I like to point out today is Joshua and the angel of the Lord, an event described in Joshua chapter 5. The Israelites crossed the Jordan River, and now they were preparing for entering and settling in the land of Canaan. The preparations were completed by two rituals, circumcision and Passover, mentioned in Joshua chapter 5, verses 2 through 12. Joshua himself is prepared by meeting with Yahweh's military commander, angel of Yahweh, in Joshua chapter 5, verses 13 through 15. Until post-exilic times, starting with 539 BC, angels are always unnamed, though the angel standing in front of Joshua chapter 5, verses 12 through 15, is identified by Jewish tradition with Archangel Michael, the protector angel of Israel, in Agadat Bereshit. Joshua 5:13-15 reads, quote, "Now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man, Ve-hine ish in Hebrew, standing in front of him, like Abraham in Genesis 12, looking up and seeing three men coming to him. And this man grasping a naked sword. Joshua walked towards him and said to him, Are you one on our side or one that of our enemies? He replied, On neither side, literally, no. I have come now. I am the captain of the army of Yahweh, Sar Tzeva Yahweh. Joshua fell on his face on the ground, worshiping him, and said, What has my Lord to say to his servant? The captain of the army of Yahweh answered Joshua, Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy. And Joshua did so. End quote. Joshua chapter 5, verses 13-15. A few observations now. First, Joshua thinks that the one who appeared to him from above, he looked up, was a man, or in Hebrew, ish meaning someone, an unidentified person. Second, the man's answer to Joshua's simple question, Are you on our side or on the side of the enemies, is quite evasive and enigmatic. No, I have come now. I am the captain of the army of Yahweh, Sar Tzeva Yahweh. The enigmatic person wants to underline, seemingly, that he just arrived. So he needs more information to answer Joshua's simple question. The man also wants to underline the fact that he is not any messenger in Hebrew malak or angelos in Greek, but he is the captain or the leader or the prince of Yahweh's army. Third, Joshua fell down and worshiped him, but the angel does not refuse this worship. Usually, angels refuse the human worship. We see this with the angel in the book of Revelation, who does not allow John the evangelist to worship him, considering himself a servant, a doulos, as John the evangelist, in Revelation chapter 22, verses 8 through 9. But this time, the angel allows Joshua to worship him. This aspect made ancient interpreters like St. Cyril of Alexandria to see in this man the angel of Yahweh, a special angel, a manifestation of the Son of God before incarnation. Fourth, the language of this man is similar to the Yahweh in Exodus chapter 3. Both Yahweh and the man, or captain of Yahweh's army, insist on the fact that the ground of theophany, divine appearance, becomes holy or set apart from the rest of the ground. And I conclude with one of the Midrashim, or ancient Jewish interpretation, which explains, quote, Rabbi Joshua said in the name of Rabbi Hanina bar Isaac, he cried out from his very toenails, I am captain of the host of the Lord. I am a prince of the celestial host. And wherever I appear, the Holy One, blessed be he himself appears. End quote. Genesis Rabbah.